I want to welcome you to the second session of this forum. We have 4 distinguished speakers in our session. I will start by our guest, Dr. Stelios Kromlidis. Please take a seat here. I would also like Mr. Deniz Coşkun from the Turkish Transmission Corporation. And last but not least, if he is back from outside, Mr. Tahameli Arvas. Maybe he comes shortly. Yes. Another speaker, Efi Milioni, will be online with us. So at this session, we will see the developments in energy markets and in the energy infrastructure systems. Let me introduce our speakers. Dr. Stelios Kromlidis is Director of Operational Business Department of the Selene RCC in Thessaloniki, if I'm correct. Deniz Coşkun is the Deputy General Manager of the Turkish Electricity Transmission Corporation, TEİAŞ. Our online speaker, Efi Milioni, is Market Analysis and Back Office Department Manager of LPD Zone SA in Greece. And Tahamelis Arvas is the CEO of EPİAŞ. To save time, I would like to invite Mr. Deniz Coşkun to speak on the Turkish electricity transmission system, and then we will continue later with other speakers.
May I take the clicker, please, for my presentation? Hi, burada. But I have a few words for the energy transition in Turkey, and then I will move to my presentation if the chairman lets me. Okay, thank you very much. Dear Mr. Chairman, dear colleagues and distinguished guests, first of all, I would like to welcome you all on behalf of TEİAŞ to the first Greek-Turkish Energy Forum, which we attach great importance and expect to do it continue developing. As you all well aware, Turkey's energy sector is in a continuing state of transition to ensure self-reliance, robustness, resilience, diversification, supply security, competitiveness, and low-carbon energy in compliance with its national circumstance. So far, the sector has been driven by 2 major characteristics: growing energy demand and import dependency, both of which are impacted by the steady economic development, with averagely up to 2022, 5% annual growth coupled with sectoral leaps in energy. To tackle these challenges, Turkey has had its own horizontal energy transition phases, first of which lasted over a decade, during 2001 till to 2016. During the first stage, Turkey introduced radical reforms and restructuring in the energy sector, including independent regulation of the sector by the Energy Market Regulatory Authority, enabling a level playing field for the new market entrants. Liberalization in power generation, distribution and trade, as well as gas distribution and retail, and stepping up the efforts to support the growth of renewable energy sources like solar and wind. Ensuring non-discriminatory access, energy markets mobilized sizable private sector investments and involvement in the energy activities. Since then, the installed capacity in energy generation, for instance, has almost tripled, and the energy landscape in Turkey's consumption and power generation patterns have altered. Having reached a certain maturity threshold with the introduction of Energy Exchange Istanbul (EPH) for electricity and natural gas transactions, Turkey has stepped into the second phase of energy transition, inspired by the national energy and mining policy strategy. Three main pillars of the strategy were reinforcement of security of supply, localization through renewables and domestic sources. The third one is enhancement of the predictability into the market. Cross-cutting these pillars, market reforms, utilization of renewable resources, improvement of the energy efficiency, deployment of new technologies and new infrastructures investments are the main objectives of Turkey's policies. If you let me, Mr. Chairman, I will move to my presentation. My presentation title is The Energy Transition of Turkey and a Glimpse of Turkish Power System. This is my agenda. Sorry. In fact, our company's roots date back to 1935 with Etibank name. However, Turkish electricity company, which is called TEK, was established in 1970s. Until 1990s, TEK served as a vertically integrated public institution comprising the entirety of the electricity generation, distribution, and transmission services countrywide. In 1994, it was reconstructed and split into two entities. One of is Turkish Electricity Generation and Transmission, which is called in Turkish TEAŞ. And the other one is Turkish Electricity Distribution Company, TEDAŞ. Within new electricity law came into force in 2001. That year is really important since liberalization process has been started within that year. Turkey Electricity Generation and Transmission, TEAŞ, split it onto three entities. TEİAŞ, which is our corporation, EÜAŞ is state-owned generation company, and lastly, for trade purposes, TETAŞ has been established. Up to 2015, EPH was separately, in 2015, up to 2015, market operation responsibility were in TEİAŞ. However, in that year, in 2015, EPH was separately organized and market operation responsibilities were transferred to EPH. As I already mentioned, TEİAŞ is the solely owner and the operator of the transmission grid. TEİAŞ is totally state-owned company. As you see in that figure, EÜAŞ in the again transmission part, we are the owner and the solely operator of the transmission grid. In the generation part, EÜAŞ is again a state-owned company. I have mentioned that, and the other private companies with license or without license. In the distribution part, we have already privatized all the distribution companies. We have 21 private distribution companies, and for the trading purposes, still private companies are regarding with that purpose. And for the market operation, as I mentioned, EPH, these market operations is under EPH responsibility. And Energy Market Regulatory Authority, which is called EMRA, is also an independent regulator of the industry. TEİAŞ, as transmission system operator, plays a very critical role in the electricity energy value chain. The following items are our important roles in the energy sector. The first one is network connection of generation and consumption facilities. The second one, providing grid infrastructure suitable for renewable energy generation. The third one is realization of the investments that allows the increased installed capacity. The fourth one is balancing the system. The last one is the implementing new technologies for more efficient operation. This is our culture. Our mission is to make a system and network management which is compatible with the energy markets for the transmission of the electrical energy in accordance with the national energy policies and in a sustainable, high quality and environmental friendly way. Our vision is to be a pioneer system and network operator in accordance with the national energy policies integrated to international energy market. Our values is innovation, transparency, reliability, efficiency, employee satisfaction, environmental awareness, teamwork, and safety. As an electricity transmission system operator, TEİAŞ has two main duties. First one, to operate whole Turkish national electricity system by using balancing power market and ancillary services market. Instantaneously, in real time, we have to balance the electrical system in terms of demand and supply. For that purposes, we have 9 regional load dispatch center and 1 national load dispatch center. As second, to operate the electricity transmission grid via substation and overhead lines, as you know, we transmitted power from generation units to the end customer and consumer. In order to maintain this duty and for maintenance of these assets, we have 22 regional directorates. We have around 17,600 employees, which 8,200 of TEİAŞ own. The other ones are the procurement from the vendors for security and operation of the substations. And we have lots of technicians in the substation. We are making a procurement from the private sector. TEİAŞ is serving to system with a total installed capacity around 107 gigawatt at present, which has been doubled since 2010. TEİAŞ is operating a transmission system nearly 75,000 kilometers of power transmission line together with 797 substations having almost 225,000 MVA transformer power and 15 interconnection lines with the neighboring countries. By the end of 2023, TEİAŞ is operating the interconnected power system in an uninterrupted, high-quality, and reliable manner with 55.119 megawatt peak load and 330.3 billion kilowatt-hour annual power consumption. And again, I do not want to repeat the values, but last year our peak demand was 55,119 gigawatt. This is the breakdown of the installed power of Turkey. As of January this year, approximately 56% of our installed power is covered by the renewable energy resources, while the remaining 44% is fossil-fueled ones. This is the breakdown of the electricity generation of Turkey as of end of last year. Approximately 42% of our electricity generation is covered by renewable energy resources, while the remaining 58% is fossil-fueled ones. These two figures are showing that how willing and desired our country is to increase the share of renewable energy resources in energy production. And Turkey is an electricity system, is a part of European network of transmission system operator for electricity, ENTSO-E, which is the largest and most instanced example of regional cooperation in the field of electricity. Synchronous parallel trial operation studies between ENSOI and Turkish electricity system were started off as of September 18, 2010. Following the successful completion, as you see that figure, the frequency figure shows our that ENSOI connection time. The deviation is really decreased. Following the successful completion of the process, permanent connection was provided between our country and ENSOI power system with the long-term agreement signed on in 2015 and renewed on 2021. With the permanent connection, Turkey electricity market has been physically integrated with the European internal electricity market. Additionally, TEİAŞ has become an observer member of ENSOI in 2016, and this status has been extended for a period of 3 years starting from last year. ENSOI observer membership status has enabled our corporation's personnel to take part in various ENSOI working groups, allowing our corporation's experts to share knowledge and experience in many areas from system planning to system operation. Efforts are continuing to develop and strengthen the existing international interconnections of our country with the electricity system of Greece, Bulgaria, and Georgia by establishing a new interconnections in the coming years. It is expected that these studies will further develop both bilateral and regional cooperation in the coming years. We have already deployed the one back-to-back, as you see over there, for the Iranian exchange. We have already got into operation. In the coming years, I have already mentioned the transfer capacities of existing interconnections between Turkey and Greece, Turkey and Bulgaria are planned to be increased by the additional 2 lines. In 2020, the preliminary studies for the new lines were completed and agreed upon by the parties. These developments are beneficial to balance the variability of the intermittent generation of wind and solar generation, and with other IPTO colleagues, from Transmission System Operator of Greece colleagues, we had a meeting today. I just left from there, and I will also continue to have a meeting with them afternoon for the new Greece and Turkey new line, new interconnection line. And these graphs shows the export and import values with the neighboring countries last year. I just skipped that. And as I mentioned, relations with our neighbors are still continue. Electricity trade continues with the Greece over the existing lines still continue. A new one is still in the plant phase. For the Greece, the same position we have, to Bulgaria. And for the Iranian side, 400 kV, 1 KOI interconnection line project and 1 DC back-to-back station facilities have been completed and are planned to put in operation very soon. Electricity trade continues with the Georgia over the existing line, but we have new 400 kV Tortum Ağızka and 154 kV Batu Muratlı interconnection lines projects are already planned. For the Iraq side, 400 kV Musul Cizre interconnection line is also planned to be put into operation in the near future. For the Nakhchivan side, the studies are carried out with the scope of the electricity export demand of the Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic. And for the Syria, still electricity trades are continuous since 2021. And lastly, our subsidiaries, Eltemtek, EPH, and CKO, we have some shares of in their company. We have 47 shares of the Eltemtek company. We have a 30% of EPH shares, and we have 12.5 shares for the CKO, which CKO, 8 transmission system operator has established. The aim of the construction of the establishment of the company to tender the interconnection capacities between countries from a single sender regionally. the last one. These are the membership of our corporation. First row represents the organization included in the scope of our ministry. Second row represented organization membership at TSO level. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Coşkun. We got quite a picture of the Turkish transmission system and of TİH. If our lady speaker from Greece, Ms. Milioni, is available, I would offer her the floor. If not, we can also. Okay, great.
Hi.
Ms. Milioni is the Market Analysis and Back Office Development Manager of LP Edison. And welcome.
Good morning.
We are ready to hear
Hello.
your
Do you see
presentation.
Do you see my screen?
It is on the screen, but you can extend it if you want. Okay, perfect.
Great. So, good morning from Athens. My name is Efi Milioni, and I work in the Energy Management Division of LP Edison. First, I would like to thank ENF for this invitation to present in such an interesting panel. And I would like to begin my presentation saying a few words about our company. LP Edison is the joint venture of Hellenic Energy, which is one of the largest industrial and commercial energy groups in Southeast Europe, and Edison, which is the longest running electricity company in Europe and one of the largest in Italy. LP Edison has a strong presence in electricity production, energy supply, energy management, and energy services in Greece and across the Southeast Europe. Today in my presentation, I will try to provide an overview of the Greek system and the fundamental aspects of that, and of how wholesale electricity markets are structured in Greece. So to begin with, most islands in Greece are interconnected to the mainland, and together they form what the so-called interconnected mainland. Some of the islands
Are you still online? We don't hear you.
the national Greek demand. Greece has interconnections with all neighboring countries. We have a submarine HVDC cable with Italy and AC interconnections with the other countries. And on the graph on the right, you may see the installed capacity in Greece over the last years. You may notice that there is a sharp increase of renewable installed capacity as Greece invests a lot in renewables, mostly in wind and solar. Here we have the evolution of the Greek electricity mix over the last 30 years. Lignite historically dominated the mix, and it was supplemented by hydro and oil production and imports of electricity. The hydro capacity is not very high in Greece, but it is significant. And the hydro production varies from year to year, depending on the precipitation conditions. Since the mid-90s, natural gas was introduced in the mix. And this, along with the gradual increase of renewable production, really reduced the lignite participation. Here we see the opposite side of the energy balance. We see the demand side. Electricity in Greece is used mainly for commercial and residential sectors. The electricity used in industry accounts to about 25% of the national demand. And now let's move on to the wholesale markets. Greece transformed its wholesale markets back in November 2020. This was it was a huge milestone, and it took years of preparation and planning by all involved parties. In Greece, we have 4 distinct markets, each covering a different time horizon. We have the derivative markets, which offers opportunities for long-term managing of positions and for trading. Then we have the most liquid market, which is the day ahead. And the day ahead clearing price is the most commonly used index for electricity in Greece. After that, participants have the opportunity to correct their positions by participating in the intraday market. And all these three markets, the derivatives, the day ahead, and the intraday, are operated by the Greek Energy Exchange. And then we have the balancing market, which is operated by ADMIA, the system operator. The derivative markets started in Greece a bit earlier than the other ones. It started back in March 2020. And here participants can buy or sell standardized electricity products of monthly, quarterly, and yearly delivery for the future. The underlying commodity is the clearing price of the day-ahead price. And in Greece, participants can choose whether they want physical delivery of the trades or not. So this offers an additional flexibility. Let's move on to the most liquid market, the day ahead. As it is implied by the name, it takes place one day before the delivery time. And its basic purpose is for the demand to be met in an efficient way, minimizing the cost. How is this done? Participants place their demand and supply offers in a common book, and they perform this forecast, taking into account various factors. They take into account the weather forecast, the demand patterns they have observed, or even unit availabilities. And the algorithm solves the market and tries to meet supply with demand to calculate the clearing price and the volumes of the traded electricity. The clearing price is calculated as the intersection point of the demand curve and the supply curve, as you can see on this graph. In Greece, we have hourly granularity of the market. This means that for every day we have 24 annual prices. And a key characteristic, and it's a bit difference of the Greek market, is that it is asset-based and not portfolio-based, as it is in the most European countries. And of course, we have to discuss about Europe. Europe is a part of the single day-ahead coupling process. This means that supply and demand offers from all this region are gathered and they are solved jointly, along with the capacity constraints of interconnections. The algorithm that handles that is called euphemia, and its objective function is to maximize the social welfare across the whole of this region. The result of the algorithm is the price for its bidding zone and the flows at its interconnection. This means that with this way, we can make sure that the flow at the interconnection is planned optimally for the maximization of the social welfare. And why do we do all that? The aim of the single day-ahead coupling is to create a single pan-European cross-zonal day-ahead electricity market. So as we move closer to the delivery time, the participants have better forecasts regarding the generation and the consumption. So they can engage in intraday trading to buy and sell electricity in order to reduce their imbalances. The first option they have is to participate in one of the three complementary regional intraday auctions. They are called CRIDAs. And this is voluntary, it's not mandatory, and only participants with physical assets can participate. This means that in Greece, traders are left out of the intraday market. This June, we expect a shift from the regional markets to the pan-European ones. They will be called IDAs. And the main difference is that the cross-zonal capacity, will be calculated simultaneously for all the interconnections. The second option is to engage in the continuous intraday trading. As we know it, the XBID. Greece joined the XBID back in November 2022. And from that time, participants could perform trading around the clock and really close the delivery window. This was very beneficial and provide optimization opportunities, especially for variable generation, such as renewables. There is not a predefined window, auction window, like there is in the day ahead and the CRIDAs. There is a platform, participants place their bids and their offers, and if there is cross-zonal capacity, then these two are matched. Another difference is that there is not a unified clearing price like we have in the other markets. because for each specific hour, we can have multiple pairs of mass demand and supply at different prices. At all these markets, we have at the moment hourly products, but this is expected to change soon, and we will move to 15 minutes products. I will not go to much details regarding the balancing market because it's a very technical market. Admea has to operate the power system in an efficient and reliable manner, and to use market mechanism for optimal resource allocation. So what they do is that they run the integrated scheduling process many times per day in order to calculate the provisional schedules of every unit in Greece, and to procure the balancing capacity that is required for handling any incidents in the real time. As we move even closer to the real time, then they perform the real time balancing market, and the result is that they say exactly how each unit must operate, and to handle any deviation of the frequency, they use the balancing capacity they have procured the previous day. This is the whole sequence of the wholesale markets in Greece, but there is one last step, which is usually not very much discussed. This is the imbalance settlement. Some days after the delivery day and after reality has happened, Admea gathers all the data from the system, all the actual measurements, and they calculate the financial settlement. So each participant must pay or is expected to receive money for the actual operation of its assets. So this was a brief overview of the market and the Greek system. Thank you all very much for your attention.
Ms. Milioni, thank you very much. We will direct you some questions since you are online. I will ask the audience whether they have questions, or from the panel also. Are there any questions from the audience? I don't see any here from the panel. Also not. We thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Taha Meli Arvas. He is the, I would say, few months past, but new CEO of EPH Turkish Energy Exchange in Istanbul. I must admit I'm proud of EPH that developed in a such fast-track Turkish electricity market and activities. Also, natural gas market were introduced, and I think I'm thrilled to hear more from Mr. Arvas about the developments.
Is this the?
Yes.
Yes. I'll go over there because it's going to be difficult.
It's easier.
Yeah, I'll go. Thank you for coming, everyone. This is a very important event. I'm glad that everyone is here. I think the cooperation between neighboring countries can't be overstated. So thank you again for coming, especially our Greek neighbors. So I want to especially thank them for coming, and I think this is going to be a very successful program for many years to come. So thank you, specifically to Kostas and everyone else. Thank you. So I'm going to go over some slides, but I might go a little bit faster than usual because both Deniz Bey and Efi Hanım have stolen my thunder, as it were. They've already gone through much of the important discussion. So I won't go through a lot of details. We've heard a lot of this from Deniz Bey, the history of Turkish electricity trading and how it's progressed over the years. EPH is relatively new. It's in its 8th year now, or 9th year rather. And as you can see, we come online here. And really, EPH's central mission is to facilitate the trading of electricity. That's really it. This is done through primarily our day-ahead market, and then secondarily through our spot intraday market. You've seen these graphs from Deniz Bey already. Really, the gist of Turkey, and maybe the difference between Turkey and Greece here, is that Turkey is the the second fastest growing market by demand in the world, following only China. So the demand for electricity continues to grow steadily every year. This is very important. I think another interesting thing, I was just at the World Energy Council's Congress yesterday in Rotterdam, and I heard what I've heard through many conversations and many conferences about people's projections about how quickly solar energy, wind energy, renewable energy will grow in the next few years. These are all, some of them are aspirational goals. One country specifically I met yesterday said that they were planning to add 100 gigawatts of energy in the next 6 years, which I thought was very ambitious. In fact, I'll give you a statistics that I think might be the bottleneck for the future. If we look at the past 10,000 years and the amount of copper mined in the last 10,000 years, relative to the amount of copper that needs to be mined and processed for effective transmission of electricity, the next 5 years will see more mining of copper, the next 5 years, than the past 10,000 years. So this is a statistic that I thought was very shocking, interesting, and one that I think needs to be kept in mind when we talk about lofty goals for the implementation of renewable energy. Yes, it's great. Renewable energy is great. Carbon neutrality is great. But these don't happen in a vacuum. As a result, we need to know what is necessary for these things to happen. Our transmission, our TSO is here, and they know that without transmission, there is no transition. To paraphrase our minister, it's important that we get that online. So, as I mentioned earlier, these are our markets that we're in, EPH, the power markets, the gas markets. We're trying to increase our volumes there. We're not doing as well as we'd like to. And derivative markets now also are our goals, but we're also shifting to become both an energy and mining exchange in Turkey. So in Turkey, in the next few years, you may see, actually, let me be more specific, in this year, hopefully you'll see EPH shift from its current mandate to one where companies and firms can come to find liquidity in markets, raise capital for investment in energy markets and in the mining sector, because like I just mentioned a second ago, mining and energy transmission, production, et cetera, they all go hand in hand. These statistics you heard from Deniz Bey a few minutes ago, from TEAŞ, the $33 billion, 33 billion euros is one that I think is a major number that's a major takeaway from this presentation. The almost 200 terawatt hours in the day-ahead market is also something incredible to behold. I think Turkey is, depending on how you count it, the second, third largest market in Europe for energy. And as EPH, we are lucky enough to be facilitating a lot of the trade that goes on, the financial trade that goes on in this market. This is our shareholder structure. We are owned. Our partners include the stock market, the stock exchange of Turkey, Borsa Istanbul, our TSO, TEAŞ there, and about 95 private companies. So our largest shareholder class is the private sector. I think without the private sector, you need markets in general to price things. You need markets to help increase efficiency, and so we're lucky to have so many diverse partners in EPH. We talked about these a few minutes ago. We have the spot electricity market, the intraday market, power futures, and gas markets that we're trying to increase. We also have a renewable energy market that's very important as well. All things that we are trying to increase our liquidity in and depth of markets in throughout. Sorry, excuse me, go back here. This is the average clearing price for electricity in Turkey. As you can see, we're not blessed with as much hydro as some of our northern neighbors, but in general, our prices are relatively lower, much lower than much of Europe. So that's good for consumers, and I guess with the increase of more low-cost energy production in the future, hopefully this trend may continue. But obviously we need a base load, and now, as you may know, Turkey is planning to bring online our first nuclear reactor in the coming months this year, and then 2 more reactors in the years after that. In the meantime, we have other sources of base load, as you know. So renewables are great, but unless we figure out how to do battery storage successfully, efficiently, we're going to need something else to help the transition. Here again are our clearing prices for the day-ahead market. On the left, you see the total amount in terawatt hours, and you see again the clearing price here on the right in Turkish liras per megawatt hour. Again, this is the average trading volume. The last number is very small only because we're in the middle of the year, and we hope to increase steadily the percentage of trading that takes place in EPH relative to the broader market. Let's see here. And these are the intraday market numbers. Again, a fraction of what the day-ahead market is, but very important, again, for balancing. This is the percentage of total distribution through different means. Bilateral agreements, rather, are the largest portion. But if we have an increase in derivatives in markets in the future, I think we may see that companies will be able to better plan and hedge their exposures in these markets in the coming years. We would like to see that curve go out as far as possible, because while day ahead and intraday are great, it's nice to be able to plan further in the future, obviously. Some of these numbers I think Denizbey already mentioned. As you can see, we have a lot of certificates issued. Some are online, many are not, and that will change the scope of renewable energy in Turkey and elsewhere in the near future. We have a transparency platform, which we're very proud of at EPH, and that includes 180 approximately data points that's accessed by millions of data points are accessed every day from every European exchange through globally, not only Europeans, but elsewhere. People are very keen to access this information from our platform, which allows for a lot of planning and reporting on global electricity markets. These are the organizations we belong to. Like I said, I was at the World Energy Council yesterday, and we had a lot of interesting discussions there. If you want to know about natural gas market legislation, there's a QR code for those of you that are interested. I want to close by not discussing specifically anything about EPH, but an anecdote I heard yesterday about the problem or the moral hazard that follows long-term subsidies in markets. And it goes something like this. It has nothing to do with EPH, frankly, but it was interesting anyway. I thought I'd share it with you. After the fall of communism, they believe the market operators in now what's now the Republic, the Federation of Russia, says, how are we going to get people to pay for power and gas? Because they're so used to it being free for so long. So they say, let's go to someone's house and let's do some anecdotal evidence and a survey, essentially. So they go to some woman's house and they say, can we spend a few hours with you? Some of you may know this story. And she says, sure, why not? And they arrive at lunchtime. She's about to make lunch, and she turns on the gas stove and she makes lunch. She turns it on and then she uses a match to spark the fire. And then a few minutes pass by, she starts making lunch, and then she makes lunch, but she doesn't shut the stove off. And then a few minutes later, maybe half an hour later, she makes tea for herself on the stove again, but again, she doesn't shut the stove off. A few hours go by, she makes dinner on the stove. She doesn't shut the stove off. And then after dinner, it's still on. She makes tea or coffee again before she sleeps, and then she ultimately shuts the stove off before she goes to sleep. And they ask her, why did you leave the gas stove on the entire time? Why didn't you just shut it off every time? And she said, well, every match has a cost, right? So when I sparked that match, I only used one match per day. If I had shut it off and turned it on every time, I would be spending so much money on matches, right? So take from that what you will, but I think in the future, I think in general and in the future, I think we'll see a lot of countries and a lot of people getting used to more market prices in energy. So just an anecdote I heard yesterday that I thought I'd share. So thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'll take any questions from the floor.
Thank you very much.
Okay, İskender Gökalp, thank you very much. Any thoughts about a future hydrogen market in Turkey?
I think we're not. We will be there, but I think green hydrogen specifically has a lot of way to go. I think everyone's talking about green hydrogen as if it's the panacea that will save everyone in the future. It might, but we're just not there yet. I think Turkey has a lot of potential for it, especially with low-cost renewable energy. Then you can get into green hydrogen, but I don't see that happening overnight. I think there's still a lot of future, but you can't beat it. Hydrogen is great if you can produce it inexpensively. So once that happens, I think we'll see a developed hydrogen market. Any other questions? I think there's a question over here.
On the side over there.
What's that?
Thank you. Emre Ertürk, Energy IQ Market Information Services. Would you please tell us more about your plans about launching the carbon markets in EPH?
Right. So there is a impending or incoming legislation or framework that requires people to plan for this ETS market we're talking about. In EPH's mandate, when it was first formed, I think in 2013, the legislation was passed. The government or the country specifies, the law specifies EPH to set up an ETS market. We've already discussed plans with EEX, the European exchange that is really the preeminent ETS operator, on how we can work together, and that's something that we're planning. And we'll keep everyone posted as we have developing plans. I hope that answers your question. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Arvas. We'll have at the end of session another discussion round, but I want to introduce you now, Dr. Stelios Kromlidis. He's responsible as director for the smooth operation of services and transmission system operators in Southeast Europe, promoting energy network security and clean energy flow. This is a very promising job, and thank you for attending this conference, and we want to hear from you more, Stelios.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and everybody who attended, and also everybody that worked hard to prepare this forum. If I can have the switch for the slides. I will just give you an introduction of Selin CC and what we actually do. It's the latest So Selin CC stands for Southeast Electricity Network Coordination Center, or RCC. It's the latest center that's been established in Europe. And I will run through you a little bit of the history of how the RCCs were created and what's their role. First of all, what are the RCCs and why do we need them? I will give you a couple of significant blackout events that led to the creation of these RCCs. First of all, we had on the 23rd of September an event in Italy, or known as the Blackout of Italy, in 2003. It was in the middle of the night that Italy was importing a lot of power from Switzerland, and there was a cascading event situation where we ended up with a blackout in Italy, costing 1.2 billion worth of euros, roughly. Actually, we're quite lucky because the event happened in the night, so the demand was actually low. If it was during the day, it would be much, much higher than that. That alone shows the cost of any such event and why it is worth actually coordinating, even if we can avoid some of them, perhaps not all of the events, that would be for the benefit of everyone. The next event was on the 4th of November 2006. A lot of people in Europe remember where they were at that time, like people in the past used to remember where they were when Elvis Presley died, for example. But that was an event that led literally to the creation of RCCs. It was again close to the night where the bad coordination between the German TSO and the Dutch TSO led to an event that basically split Europe into three parts in frequency. You can see also the diagrams on the screen over there. It was simply bad coordination. It was planned I don't know if you remember the event. It's where a ship arrived early. They had to open a bridge, which meant that they also had to disconnect a line at a particular time. The agreement between the two TSOs was at 12 o'clock midnight. The ship arrived early and they had to do it around 10:30 at night, 1.5 hours earlier. Dutch demand was still high, but the German TSO didn't inform them that they were going to open their line early, and that led to the cascading effects that I mentioned. So since then, we ended up with a creation with a direction from the European Commission, NSOE, supports ACER, etc., with the creation of 6 RSCs, regional security centers. We now have one regional security center, which is in Belgrade, the SEC, but the remaining 5, because they are based on European soil, since the 1st of July 2022, as we'll see later on, they have converted to RCCs. So one of them is in Chorizo, established in 2008. I worked at Chorizo between 2015 and 2019, so I know how they operate as well. And the next one was in TSNet a little bit later, also in 2008. It's located in Munich. We also have the SEC in Belgrade, like I mentioned earlier, established in 2015. And then we had the Nordic RCC in 2016, Copenhagen, and the Baltic also in 2016. CC was the last one to be established, and it started in 2020, but converted to RCC in 2022, like everyone else, on 1st of July. We'll see that in a minute. So the role of RCCs is what? Basically, due to the massive integration of renewable energy sources, solar and wind, we will have to do a lot more redispatching and controlling the cross-border exchanges. So for that reason, we need to cooperate, TSO to TSO, and for that, the necessary body there is an RCC that coordinates the exchanges between the TSOs. We also coordinate the high voltage electricity flows, so mostly at high voltage, not DNO, but TSO level. And what we try to do is to help electricity flow with security and transparency. These are the two sort of pylons that we need to work. Security, because everything is done using security analysis on the electricity networks, and transparency because, as we'll mention in a minute, we calculate the maximum capacity that can be transferred on each border that we control as such, and this is sent to the markets and also published on our website. So if we move on to the next one, the Salin CC literally serves the TSOs mentioned in the slide. So we have as shareholders Bulgaria, Greece, and Italy. So EZOEAD, IPTO, and Terna. And as a service TSO, we also have Transelectrica, which is the TSO of Romania. Each one is a shareholder to the company with 33% share, and we're a privately owned company as such. We currently have approximately 24 highly qualified employees, and we work on a continuous operation over the year, so 365 days, 24 hours operation. We also have a subsidiary in Italy called Esperia, which is basically calculating the capacity on the cable of Greece and Italy, which is this cable. Now, the services provided by Selling CC are those shown. The first one is common grid model. We basically collect all the individual grid models from the TSOs all over Europe, and we merge these into a combined common grid model, or CGM, as it's known. Following that, we perform the coordinated security analysis, or CSA, and this is focused on flows. The next service is the coordinated capacity calculation, which is what I mentioned earlier on. On each border, we calculate what's the maximum amount of megawatts that can be imported or exported with security as assessment. The next service is the short-term adequacy, or STA, as it's known. Also, we also have OPC, which is outage planning coordination. We help the TSOs coordinate their planning and for maintenance. And the critical grid situation management, which was the last service that had been developed. The CGM, as I mentioned earlier, is a common grid model, and we do that also in UCT format files and CGMES, which is the latest standard of Europe, established by ENTSOE. If I move on to the next one, the next service is the CSA, or Coordinated Security Analysis, where we play all the N-1s in the area to check if the network is secure for the next day, and this is normally done on the day ahead, the day before, but we also run security analysis on the intraday as well. Another service is the capacity calculation. Usually this is the order that I would prefer to put them in, because the CGM, of course, without the common model, we don't have anything, and the security of the network needs to be guaranteed, because if we end up with a blackout, then the markets are very good to do their job, but without a network and with a blackout, we don't have anything to play in the markets. So on this one, we calculate the Bulgarian-Romanian border and also the Greek-Bulgarian border to check what's the maximum amount of megawatts that can be transferred in both ways. The the capacity and the numbers that we calculate end up in the energy exchanges and also published on our website, as I mentioned earlier on. Here you can see some of the capacity calculation on the different time horizons. So we have D-2, 2 days in advance, the D-1, which is the day ahead I mentioned earlier, and also the intraday, which is on the day calculation. The increase in the values that you can see from one year to the next seems that the price, the calculated values that we produce are trusted by the TSOs, and therefore the reduction in the NTC is not as it used to be, and it's much lower. So therefore they trust our calculations, and we progress with those values. The same can be seen here for the long-term capacity calculation, which is performed on a month ahead and a year ahead basis. So you can see the values for 2023 and 2024. The process was successful on more than 97% on average of the examined periods. And there is also a very small margin of failure for IT issues or something that basically didn't go as planned in the process, or a fallback was created. The remaining 3 services that I mentioned earlier, it's the outage planning coordination. We get the maintenance plans of each TSO. They're put on a map, a security analysis is run, and if there's any constraints that cannot be solved, then the planning has to be changed in coordination amongst the TSOs and the RCC. We are an advisory center, so the TSOs at the moment do not have to implement the suggestions that we make to them and the proposals. We are like a consultancy as such. They can progress with their own solutions and remedial actions. But of course, if this leads to an event, they would have to explain afterwards why they did that, why they went ahead with that. The short-term adequacy is mostly a service where the total generation and the total demand in each area and all over Europe is added up, and they're compared. There's various algorithms that run. And this gives us an idea whether there's a shortage that needs to be resolved or not. And the critical grid situation is also referring to critical situations, extraordinary situations like storms or earthquakes or various other events that need to be taken into account. And we also participate in the pan-European services of CGM, OPC, and SDA, as you can see on the slide, and we have obtained access to the OPD. OPD is a platform that collects all the data from Europe, and you need to meet very, very strict and stringent criteria to get access to that. So we complied with that very quickly, based on the setup that we have in the company, and we have access to that data. We can produce the services, and we can therefore give these to our TSOs. The services of CGM, OPC, and SDA are all done for the NSOE, and we basically remunerated by NSOE as such. Now you can see that on this slide for some statistics for the pan-European OPC, where 40 TSOs participate in this planning. And you can see some of the statistical data. The basically success rate is close to 100% in most cases. And there are various evolutions that will need to come up in the future with CGMES models being used for the process. CGMES in the year ahead is also required. We got the contract from NSOE this year to perform this task for them, and it looks like we will be doing this task next year again, most probably, because the success rate was extremely good compared to previous years. You can see here that 100% of inclusion was published of year-ahead IGMs in the CGM, and 80% of the total IGMs. Some of them, of course, were not good enough to be validated and go through for the process and the merging. Now, the future RCC services are shown here, where we have an additional 11 tasks to complete the number of 16 in total for Europe, based on the latest fourth energy package, or the clean energy package that is otherwise known. And this includes a variety of new tasks, like our involvement with reserve capacity, sharing of reserve capacity, sharing of reserves, and participation in the TYNDP, the 10-year network development plan, optimization of the inter-TSO settlements, and various others that you can just see in this slide. The most challenging new tasks for the next year or two for us would be the application of the 70% rule. This is a rule that says that 70% of the capacity in the line needs to be available for market reasons. This was not possible until now because in our area we have a lot of specificities surrounded by countries that are not members of the EU, and therefore they don't have to comply with all the rules and regulations that the EU countries do. And therefore the implementation of this rule was a little bit difficult, but as a whole it's moving on now, it's on track, and we have a methodology for it. So in the coming months the implementation of it is on the way. The next one is the ROSC, or Regional Operational Security Coordination methodology, where in this case an optimizer needs to be used for costly and non-costly remedial actions. At the moment we deal with non-costly remedial actions using GCT format files. In the future it will be CGMES format files, and also using remedial action optimizer, both mostly rather I should say for the costly actions, i.e. when cross-border dispatching is required. Other items is the regional sizing of reserve capacity that I mentioned earlier, and for balancing reasons, and also the sharing of reserves of capacity among the TSOs for each SOR. In our case, we have one SOR, but we have two capacity calculation zones, or CCRs, one that contains Romania, Bulgaria, and Greece, or the SEE region, and the other one is the grid that I mentioned earlier, which is Greece to Italy, using the cable that is DC between the two countries. We also have to facilitate the regional procurement of balancing capacity, and also, as I mentioned earlier, participate in the 10-year development network plan. We also need to identify regional electricity crisis scenarios and participate in perhaps not making, but assessing the restoration plans of the TSOs that we serve. I don't know how we're doing for time, but I'm trying to go as fast as possible. I will leave more time for questions at the end if anybody needs that, because we're close to the lunchtime, I suspect, and I don't want to take anyone's time. Thank you very much. If anyone has any questions.
Thank you very much. Indeed, we will give the chance to our audience to ask questions to our distinguished speakers. Are there any questions? Please, you will receive microphone immediately.
Thank you. I have a question for Deniz Bey. You mentioned that you're having some meetings with your Greek counterparts regarding the new cross-border connection. I was wondering if there's any news on when that's likely to be realized.
Excuse me, can I use this? Okay, now. As you know, we have already signed an MAU, Minutes of Understanding, with the counterparts of our company in Greece in last year, December. And in that document, it is written that in 2029, the new interconnection line will be ready, hopefully. Since you know some expropriation issues are needed, I mean, to construct the transmission lines, the total length of the new line is around 130 kilometers, I guess, and 30 kilometers of in our boundaries. The remaining one in the Greece part. Then, I mean, we can easily and we can quickly construct, but in order to start that type of things, first we have to sign a construction agreement with two parties. I mean, TİAŞ and İPDO should agree and sign a construction agreement.
Okay. Çok teşekkürler.
Teşekkürler.
Any other questions? Here, over there. Please also say your name and introduce yourself.
It is Ismail Hakkatesh from BOTAŞ. I have a question for the Director General and Deputy Director General as well. What are the EPH steps will be towards the energy hub? What steps will EPH take, actually? The first question, maybe I can finish my question and then I can get the answers. And then the second question, is there the projects towards the Cyprus, the electricity connections between Turkey, like actually new projects maybe? Thank you.
Buyurun gelen durum isterseniz.
Cyprus is
Yes, for the Cyprus connection, maybe you heard from the news. I mean, we had a very preliminary project, and it is still in the first phase of the project. We have already some technical jobs are completed. However, you know, we have to get a permission from ENSOI. Even that kind of connection is an asynchronous connection. We have to get a permission from ENSOI. These some issues will discuss by the ENSOI colleagues. Then I think we can go to the future steps. Thank you very much.
As far as the energy hub question, I think Turkey is already an energy hub. I think its role as an energy hub will continue to grow in the coming years. The question is, how do we move the physical delivery to the financial markets? And that's EPH's goal in the near future, because I think in the coming years you'll see an increase in transmission of natural gas, as you know, and electricity, as we heard from our panelists So how can we move that to financial markets? We're going to have to do some creative thinking. We're going to have to see what we can do to incentivize people to enter these markets, derivatives markets specifically. That's really our 6-month goal here, as my goal is, at least in joining EPH. So we'll know if I'm successful or not in a few months. Hopefully we will be, but if not, we're open to suggestions from everyone. So thank you for the question.
So are there any other questions? I will, please.
Hello. Do you hear me? Kadri Kaleli, Manfort Energy. Just a general question. Come up carbon trading, any initiatives on the Greek side or Turkish side at all on carbon trading?
Any comments?
Carbon trade.
I mean, if Effie Miloni is still with us, maybe she can answer as far as the Greek side. I know on the Turkish side, I mentioned earlier, we've entered into an agreement with Energy Exchange, the EX, in the European Union. And so we hope to develop a carbon trading platform, both an ETS system and other systems. I was just meeting with some colleagues at ICE a couple days ago, and we also discussed with them how we can develop these markets. But I think that's something that's going to have to be done. And so there's no getting around that market. We're going to have to enter into it. Everyone is going to have to enter into it. So those financial markets that plan ahead will be successful, and those that do not will unfortunately be not. So hopefully we will be a part of the first group. So I hope that answers your question.
Please. I think this is our last question. We take.
Sorry, I'm delaying you. Very quickly, I wanted to ask Taha Bey if he has any views on new EU power market reforms, mandatory use of contracts for difference in new generation support, encouragement of power purchase agreements, etc.
So to answer your question, I think PPAs are critical for planning for proper implementation of markets. I think that's one of the things that we as EPH will promote and will encourage. I think even though, so even if you don't trade on EPH's platform to buy your electricity, we still are the record keeper of such agreements for balancing and other issues. So, I think it's in the best interest of everyone to have those type of plans ahead. And I think that's one of the things we were discussing yesterday. In fact, the need to encourage people to enter into these, whether it be private sector or public. So I think we're going to do the utmost we can to encourage these. How we will do it exactly is left to be seen, I guess. But that's our goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your interest. First of all, we will soon go, we will be here before lunch. We'll hear the ministers from both countries. And I have a short question to Mr. Arvas, our energetic and young CEO of EPH. We saw here the shareholder structure of EPH, 30% TH, and it was foreseen that the half of it, 15%, to be transferred to the gas TCO. So my question will be, it's tricky, when will be this done?
Well, that's a good question. That's above my pay grade. So I think it's a good question, but I don't know. I mean, maybe our colleagues from BOTAŞ have insight. I don't have any specific date, unfortunately, with that. But let me get back to you on that, as Americans say in the Senate to a senator. So thank you for the question. I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you very much. We are ready to hear the ministers from both countries.
think we are waiting for them.
Distinguished guests and representatives of the Turkish and Greek energy sector, welcome to Istanbul. And most importantly, welcome to the first Greek-Turkish Energy Forum. I would like to begin by thanking the organizers, the Institute of Energy for Southeast Europe, for this meaningful event. And we are hopeful that this will be the beginning of a new era of opportunities between Turkey and our neighbor Greece in the field of energy. Turkey plays an important role in the energy security of Europe. Maintaining regional cooperation is also an essential part of our national and international energy security goals. We are committed to increase partnerships and value intergovernmental cooperation, as well as increased efforts amongst the private sector. The most recent Memorandum of Understanding between TEİAŞ and IPTO is an example of the kind of activity we hope to increase. We must continue to support the region in its decarbonization efforts for the eventual electrification and digitalization of our energy systems. Dear participants, I hope for the event to be fruitful for all participants and wish for many more gatherings like this to take place in the near future. Thank you and all the best. Distinguished
Security is a collective responsibility and an essential component of economic and national security. Achieving this requires regional cooperation and appropriate measures both at national, European and international level. We thus welcome the recent signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between IPTO and TEİAŞ, which will strengthen the safe and sustainable electricity transmission infrastructure and increase the capacity for electricity energy trade between Greece and Turkey. Energy saving and energy efficiency present a new potential for cooperation, which can contribute to the wider goals of the security of energy supply and a competitive low-carbon economy.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, we want to thank our speakers with a small token for their contribution to this event.